Welcome to the League of Women Voters Forum for the 4th Judicial District. This covers all of Hennepin County, so if you have friends anywhere in Hennepin County, they will be voting. When they go to the back of their ballot, they'll see these 4 contested races. Now, 2 of the races we will not be hearing from today. They were here at our primaries July 23rd, but you could check that out on 12.tv. As for tonight's forum, you will be meeting the candidates in just a second. Also, one thing about the League, we are a nonpartisan organization. We do not support or oppose candidates or political parties, but we encourage you to get very involved in your own political party and with your own candidates of your choice. As a bit of background here, the 4th Judicial District is the largest district in the state of Minnesota. Each of the judges is elected for a 6-year term. They are the first court that you will go to, whether it's civil or criminal, in Hennepin County for state law. So let's see here, I think that is about it. To ensure impartiality, I want to introduce Laura Helmer, and she's a certified moderator from Eastern Carver County. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The format tonight will begin with an opening question which has been sent to candidates prior to the forum. Then candidates will answer questions from the audience that are submitted in writing. Just raise your hand and a League member will pick up your question. Questions for judicial candidates cannot address specifics or cases that may come before them. I may have to consolidate some questions. It is unlikely that we can answer all of your questions, so please ask the candidates after the meeting. We ask that there be no demonstrations, applause, or booing of support or opposition to the candidates or their positions, and that all candidates be allowed their full time to get their point across. After the question and answer segment, the candidates will give 1-minute closing statements. Candidates, please be warned that no references of a personal nature will be tolerated. Our 2-part forum will focus first on candidates for seat 53 and then candidates for seat 16. At this time, I would like to welcome the 4th Judicial District candidates for seat 53 in alphabetical order, Bev Benson and Chris Ritz.
Thank you.
You can applaud now. Thank you. For the opening question, you will be given 2 minutes to respond. A League member will act as a timer and will show the time card at 15 seconds and then stop. When you see the stop sign, you are allowed to very quickly finish your sentence. Can the candidates see the timer signs?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. The opening question is, why are you running for judge and what are your qualifications? We will begin with Bev Benson, who drew the lot to speak first.
Thank you. My name is Bev Benson. I'm running for judge because I've experience in Hennepin County in the courtroom, in trying cases, and in making tough, life-changing decisions. As a violent crimes prosecutor in Hennepin County for 25 years, I've made many tough decisions. The decision to present 30 murder cases to the grand jury for indictment, and conversely, the decision not to charge a person with the crime because the evidence was not there and justice required that the defendant not be charged. As a domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual assault prosecutor, I've worked with victims who are the most vulnerable in our community, children and domestic victims from all socioeconomic backgrounds and a diversity of ethnic backgrounds. In my cases, my youngest murder victim was a 10-month-old baby, an American Indian child, and my oldest murder victim was 79 years old. I've worked with surviving family members through those very difficult situations in criminal proceedings. I understand the importance of victim impact, victim rights, community impact statements, and have facilitated bringing those voices into the courtroom in every case that I've prosecuted. I've also met with defendants in prison. I've been in St. Cloud, Faribault, and Oak Park Heights prisons meeting with defendants and their attorneys. I've met with witnesses and defendants who are incarcerated in jail and in the Hennepin County workhouse. I've worked with fabulous interpreters, Spanish, Vietnamese, Hmong, Russian, Laotian, and with interpreters for the hearing impaired to make sure victims, witnesses, and defendants all understand what happens in the courtroom, fundamental to assuring justice. I am a Girl Scout mom, a Sunday school teacher, a wife, a mother of 2 children, reader at Nellie Stone Johnson for 2 second graders, a mentor of over 20 students from law school and other undergraduate schools, a William Mitchell graduate and an Augsburg graduate, and a former League of Women Voters moderator. I have been honored to serve this community as a Hennepin County prosecutor, and now I turned to the next position. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Ritz.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity for letting me to address you tonight. I've been a lawyer for over 30 years. I've been a private lawyer. I've practiced in a varied number of specialties as a civil lawyer. Some that hang personal injury cases, contract disputes, wills, real estates, divorces, you name it. And I've also been a criminal defense lawyer. I wanted to be a judge because at this point in my career, in my life, I feel that my very legal experiences will help people more if I'm a judge than perhaps I would be if I'm a private lawyer. I think I can bring these very legal experiences and expertise to help more people, I think, and perhaps be a more fair and compassionate person on the bench, and certainly more than I could be as a private lawyer. So that's the essence of why I want to be a judge. Now, I've also served for about 20 years as an arbitrator for the American Arbitration Association. That's somebody who handles binding legal cases just like a judge would. These are civil cases for money. Got some experience doing that. Also, I'm a farmer. Wife and I live out in western Hennepin County. We farm. We have a daughter. Got 2 little small businesses I run. One's the law firm and one's the farm. And I think as a result of all these experiences, I am a more fair, compassionate person than I was certainly when I started out in law school. When I went to law school, I wanted to be a lawyer to help people. It wasn't because of the money, because it certainly isn't there often. And I did it for service. And now I hope that I'll have the opportunity to serve the greater Hennepin County citizens on the bench. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question will start with Chris Ritz. And here's the first question. There has been some talk about allowing judicial candidates to seek endorsement from a political party. What is your opinion of the positives and negatives of this option?
I think it's absurd because you seem then to be beholden to that political party that put you there. And as a matter of fact, I find it odd that people are, in judges, and I see it all the time, are having people endorse them because it gives the air of impropriety, and a judge has to be fair and impartial. So I'm not for it at all. Now, I do recognize that the positive aspect probably is that, you can get some funds together to get your message out there, but that certainly isn't the way to do it, in my opinion.
Thank you. Bev Benson.
I don't believe that. I think it's appropriate for judicial candidates not to seek endorsement, that you run as a nonpartisan candidate. I have filed as a nonpartisan candidate. I have sought some endorsements by individuals who I personally respect and I think show balance in who I am as a person and as an attorney. For example, I have been endorsed by our sheriff, and I have also been endorsed by George Sewell. They happen to be Republicans. They simply, what they say is that they're connected to the Judicial Standards Board and to law enforcement. I have worked my whole career with law enforcement. On the other hand, I've also been endorsed by former Vice President Walter Mondale, and I am proud that those individuals took the opportunity to meet with me and talk with me about who I am as a lawyer, who I will be as a judge, asked me a number of questions, and then made the professional decision to endorse me. So I think there is a difference between a political party endorsing you, and I have intentionally not sought political endorsement by any political parties, as opposed to individuals that you respect and who respect you endorsing you. I think if you do look at my endorsements, I have literature outside of the courtroom, and hopefully people are getting literature in the mail from me. You will see I have a wide base of people who are mostly independent and are really not politically connected, but they may do something professional in the community, who have worked with me over the years, victim advocates, law enforcement, prior victims, the former Vice President of the United States, George Sewell is the former head of the Judicial Selections Committee. So I think it's appropriate to seek endorsements professionally, but I think it's inappropriate to seek a political party endorsement. It brings politics into the courtroom, and judges should be fair and impartial, and that's why I'm running. I will be fair and impartial and not owe anything to anyone. It's very important that everyone who runs, I believe, for a judicial position, use their best judgment, listen to everyone that appears in front of them, and be respectful and treat everyone fairly. Thank you.
The candidates have been doing a great job keeping to time. I just wanted to remind everyone that it's 2 minutes to respond to each of these questions, unless it's a yes or no question, and then we'll shorten up the time. Question number 2 will begin with Bev Benson. Should a judge be held to a higher ethical standard than others in the judicial system? Why or why not?
Yes, I believe judges should be held to a higher ethical standard. I think everyone that's in the system should be held to a high ethical standard. Judges are leaders in the legal community. They are to be leaders to make sure that what they do, what they say, how they act in court, outside of court is appropriate, that they should be acting in a manner that shows the best of humankind, and that they are respectful of people, of each other. And yes, I think they should be held to a higher ethical standard.
Thank you. Chris Ritz.
Yes, I agree.
All right. All right. Question number 3, we will begin with Chris Ritz. And this is a popular question because it's come to me 3 times. So, how would you prepare yourself to handle cases involving areas of the law that you may be unfamiliar with?
That is a good question because no judge can know everything, but I do think there are a lot of lawyers have to go to continuing legal education classes. Probably are aware of that, maybe not, just like most professionals. But I do think, and I've written about it, that judges need to be more expertise with the subject matter they're handling. And perhaps they should be required, certainly if a judge is going to sit in family court, they better go attend some CLEs on family law. I don't think, per se, a judge should be going to study about a specific case, if that was the question. In a general area of law, if a judge is going to be sitting listening to civil cases, and they've never done any civil work before, they better get some background and training before they go into those cases, because they're not going to be very helpful or effective to the litigants, and it's not fair to them. That would be the end of that answer.
Thank you. Bev Benson.
First of all, I would ask each judge is assigned a buddy judge, mentoring judges, and then there are a number of judges on the same floor, usually 5 or 6. I would seek advice from the mentoring judge, from buddy judges, from other judges maybe who have that area of expertise as their strong suit. I would select a law clerk that would balance out my areas of expertise, which I believe are criminal, juvenile. I've done some child protection law, and I've done appellate work. So I would seek out a law clerk that would balance out that area. A law clerk is generally a lawyer that works with a judge closely, and so I would have that person on staff. I would spend some extra time and look at CLEs that have been given, look for CLEs, and attend on the subject matter and outline the area that I needed to spend some more time. I would seek out people that are an expert in that area and do the research myself and act accordingly.
Thank you. The next question, we will begin with Bev Benson. Do you believe you would encounter any problems moving from your role as an advocate onto a new role as a judge?
I think anyone that makes a transition from being a lawyer and being an advocate, whether you're a prosecutor, a defense attorney, a civil attorney, there is a transition. It is a different role. What I personally know, I do not believe that is true. Over the years, I've been a mock trial judge, both for high school and for law school. and college debates. So I've been in that role as a moderator where I'm listening to two sides, where I'm moderating and actually making rulings. That's part of what the mock trial debate is for law school students, is that's how they learn to do evidentiary objections, how to frame legal arguments. So I've been in that position as a mock trial coach for high school teams and as a mock trial judge. I've moderated for the League of Women Voters for about 15 years. I've learned a lot about moderating through their formal moderation training program that the League of Women Voters provides, as well as actually moderating legislative, city, council meetings. And so I would take all those skills and bring to the bench. So no, I don't think it would be a problem. I think it would be a very easy transition for my background. Also the fact that I've tried a number of cases, that I've looked at literally over 4,000 criminal cases, so I've reviewed a lot of police reports, I've reviewed juvenile records, I've reviewed child protection records in preparation for criminal cases. I've done some pro bono work on a medical insurance defense case and on a CHIPS case, so I've had an opportunity to review articles of incorporation. My parents owned a business for 15 years, and long before I decided to be a lawyer, I worked in their business, and I read articles of incorporation. They also had attorneys. I worked with their attorneys. I was involved in that as well. So I know the business side. I know that there are a lot of different parts to being a judge, but certainly moving into a neutral magistrate that listens, cares, and respectfully reaches a decision, that is what I would do as a judge. Thank you.
Chris Ritz,
What
same
was
question.
the question?
The question was, do you believe you would encounter any problems moving from your role as an advocate onto a new role as a judge?
I forgot if there was a sub part. It's a different experience, to be sure. I don't believe I would, but as I mentioned, I serve as an arbitrator for the American Arbitration Association. So I've been doing this, and I'm chosen by my peers to do this. And I handle about 3 cases a month. These are in automobile cases. And sometimes they're for a lot of money. And the most important thing I've noticed, the difference between acting as a judge or an advocate, is if you're acting as a judge, you really have to be quiet and listen. And most lawyers you ever meet, the biggest problem they have is they really can't be quiet. It is what makes a very effective lawyer. But listening is the most important thing that you can do if you're going to decide a case for someone. And it's difficult sometimes because you want to help the people, but that's not your role. I know we're sitting in here with a sitting judge right now. I'm looking at him. He's smiling from ear to ear because he knows what it's like. And it's very difficult. And I think you have to bite down on your tongue and your experience and give these people a chance to really amplify themselves fully. Because you're not going to get what their whole case or their problem is out right away. I've experienced that. And many times people can't articulate or present themselves that well. So you really have to be patient. And that's something that I worked very hard at over the years. It's something that certainly didn't come to me naturally. I was pretty precocious growing up. Probably impatient. So I do think that I can do that, and I have been doing that. But it probably is one of those situations where you're going to have to continue to consciously work on that. Very important attribute of patience and listening. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question, we will begin with Chris Ritz. Both of you have referenced this already this evening in your opening statements and in your responses, but outside of your work in the legal system that you have had, can you give us more of an idea of some life experience that would make you a well-rounded enough person to be a judge? And for example, perhaps you could include community service projects that you would participate in.
Well, as I mentioned, I farm, and when you farm, you have to pretty much do everything. You have to fix your electrical problems yourself. You have to build your own buildings. You have to, besides, you have to learn about machinery, which is something that, God, I never thought I'd have to learn about. And people have to help you and depend on you as well. And that experience has given me a greater appreciation for just any person, tradesperson, a laborer who works with their hands and is struggling every day. You know, I play a lot of music still. I'm a trombone player. I've taught music. I've taught high school, and I still go back and teach a class occasionally at Totino Grace High School and Montemita also school. These are private schools. I also mentor students from Hamlin and St. Thomas Law. And I really like being around people. I think that's the most important thing about probably being a judge. You're going to be with people every day, constantly. If you don't like people and you don't know how to interact well with people, I don't think that you can be an effective jurist, a judge, if you will. So those types of things have, I think, shaped me very well. It's also served me very well to be a private lawyer, to go out and have to get clients, to have to run a business, to have to pay my bills, and do a lot of pro bono work as well, not because you're going to get paid, but because you really want to help people. So all these things have made me perhaps a more sympathetic person to everyone that I've ever met. Thank you.
Thank you. Bev Benson, same question.
Well, previously I volunteered to critique kids who were on the Brooklyn Center speech team. I volunteered to present at the Rape and Sexual Assault Center. I have worked with kids who have Down syndrome, long time ago, but that's in my history, and I have a deep commitment to kids who have Down syndrome. I am currently in my second year as a volunteer at Nellie Stone Johnson, where I read to second graders and totally enjoy that. I've previously worked at the Sheridan Global Art School, where I've critiqued kids' writing. I am a member of the League of Women Voters. I've been president of Wayzata Plymouth League of Women Voters. I've been a moderator for a number of years and had the benefit of really some excellent education on issues that they have provided education to the community. I have also, my family comes from a farm background. I have picked weeds and rocks out of bean fields, so I do have some farm connection. My parents owned a business where they sold silos, and that's what they did for 15 years. I learned a lot about silos. So if you see the big blue silos that say Seal Store across the state, 3 states, those are from the Bev Benson family. I'm connected to Augsburg College, where I graduated. My son is a freshman at Augsburg College. I've done some presentations there on career night. I have mentored over 20 students. I had one student that I mentored who was originally in the paralegal program at North Hennepin Community College. She came and volunteered about 5 years ago, and at the county attorney's office, she was bright. She was in a 2-year program. She finished that program. She went to Augsburg College, graduated from Augsburg, went to Hamlin Law School. Now she works in the court system for one of the judges. So I have worked with students who are in community colleges, in 4-year colleges, in law school and interested, and in high school. I had somebody this year shadow me for a day that was in high school and is very interested in being a lawyer. I've worked with Top Hat Theater, which is out of Crystal, and my daughter is in Top Hat Theater. Thank you.
The next question, we will start with Bev Benson, and I believe we have time for one more question, and then we will move on to closing statements. Depending on how long your answers are, we may get to it. Is it appropriate to impose more restrictions on what cases go to trial? Is there a need for more mandatory mediation and settlement efforts? What would you propose?
I think that any case that goes to trial, any defendant, whether it's speeding or murder, has a right, constitutional right to trial. So I instinctively realize that's the first issue. However, if there were settlement discussions before, what we who try cases, our criminal cases, know on Mondays are the worst day because all of our trials are scheduled. It's very common for a particular prosecutor and a public defender, for example, to be scheduled for 3 to 5 trials on a Monday. That is not realistic. We all know there's no way 3 to 5 trials can go on a Monday. Now, some of the reasons that they're scheduled then is because they will settle. And one of the things that I have learned in my 25 years of prosecuting here and my 3 years of prosecuting in Stearns County is that some defendants really will not make a decision about whether they want to go to trial until it is the day of trial. Some defendants will not make that decision until they actually see jurors being brought up. And that's why in some cases jurors will come up, you'll start jury selection, and defendants will plead guilty and the case is resolved. But I think one of the ways that we could avoid having so many continuances of trials is to have settlement conferences the week before, possibly on a Thursday, on the cases scheduled for trial on Monday, so that people could have an opportunity one more time to sit down with their client, a defense attorney, whether a public defender or a private attorney, have an opportunity to sit down with their client and say, Monday we're set for trial. If you want to resolve this without a jury trial, this is the last time this offer is available, so that the opportunity to resolve it really is gone prior to the day of trial. So one of the things I would do is I would schedule a settlement conference on trials that are scheduled on a Monday the week before to have that conversation.
Thank you. Chris Ritz, same question.
Thanks. Yes, judges have to be more proactive about settling cases. And they can do this in a number of ways. First of all, I have to practice everywhere in the state, it seems. I've been to every place in the state. And they all do it differently, but Olmsted County does do what Ms. Benson mentioned. They tell you to get in there on a Friday before the trial, and it's going to be a drop dead or not. And that works out very well. Then there was a judge that used to, in our civil cases, call you up on the phone, just out of the blue, and say, you know, why aren't you guys settling this case? And that needs to be done more in the civil context, because let's face it, civil cases are all about one thing, and it's pretty much money. So I think a lot of cases the judges can force into arbitrations. They can narrow the issues, get people to admit fault or liability or a contract breach. And then you can actually get the parties to agree to get it out of the court and get a special master to hear the damage issues, or vice versa. You can bifurcate in two parts these trials, because oftentimes it isn't the money. It's just whether or not there's liability. Judges can do a lot more than they're doing now to run the courts more efficiently in that regard, and they should. And what you should probably know is that every civil case in the state must go to a mediation before it can be tried. But the parties have to pay for the mediator. And so they're not going to do it till the bitter end. And that's not effective. It needs to be done almost at the beginning when the case is filed. So those are some of the things I would definitely encourage and do myself. Thanks.
Thank you. I think we can squeeze in one more question, but we're just going to give you 1 minute to answer this one. What would be your greatest liability as a new judge? And we will start with Chris Ritz.
Maybe I'm too nice. Maybe I'm too compassionate about people. Seriously, I do always look for people to sometimes be better than they really are. That's just the way I am. And I certainly have been taken advantage of in business deals because of that, but it hasn't changed my outlook on people. But that might be one thing I could fairly say. And I haven't thought about too many others.
All right. Thank you. Bev Benson.
I think it will be a constant opportunity to balance things. This is a county where there's 800,000 lawsuits that are filed, 800,000 cases. So I tend to be somebody that I'm a high volume person. I like to be really busy. I like to encourage people to come in and talk to me to work things out, even in my own practice now. So I think it's any judge in Hennepin County, that is, it's a high volume business. When you have a personality that likes to be really busy, you have to maintain every day the balance of busy and having effective outcomes. So I would say scheduling things really efficiently, setting the time for that hearing, when it starts, when it ends. And the other thing I would do to make sure the high volume is met is stagger sentencings or stagger hearings. For instance, one of the things that's very common in Hennepin County now is they'll have 4 9:00 hearings.
All right, thank you. We are now ready to begin your closing statements. This will be in the reverse order of the opening statements. And so we begin with Chris Ritz.
I really hadn't planned on this until about a year ago. I had aspirations to be a judge, but I really never focused on it until this year. I was constantly just trying to run a practice and another business at home and take care of, the family and do everything you all do every day. And to be honest about it, a friend of mine said, why don't you stop complaining about the system and do something about it? You're at a point in your life where you can, and do it. And that's why I'm trying to do this now. So really, you want to know the truth, that's why I'm here. I think I can make a change for the better because I've had a lot of different legal experiences. And I think that would really serve the people of Hennepin County very well. I hope you'll vote for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bev Benson.
I'm asking you to vote for Bev Benson because I will bring my life experiences, volunteer and community commitments, and legal background, including 2.5 years of appellate experience, to this judicial position. I will listen, care, reach a just decision in every case. I will make sure people understand what is happening inside the courtroom, make transparent decisions while maintaining a high-volume caseload. I will make myself available to resolve a case or to try a case. As a judge, I will bring appreciation and work with children, victims of violence, my work with blind and visually impaired people when I worked at State Services for the Blind, and my appreciation for the diversity in our community and within our court systems. Many victims, witnesses, community members, and defendants have come from a wide variety of ethnic backgrounds. I will make sure victim rights are heard, community impact statements are considered, and all arguments and positions of all litigants are heard. I would appreciate your vote for Bev Benson for Judge on November 4th. My website is bevbensonforjudge.com, and my email is bevbensonforjudge@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you both. This ends seat 53 portion, and in 2 minutes, we will start the forum for seat 16. Thank you to the candidates and the audience for your terrific questions. I'm Laura Helmer, moderator for tonight's forum. The rules for this evening's forum were stated earlier to the audience and have been explained to the candidates. On behalf of the Golden Valley League of Women Voters, I want to welcome our candidates for seat 16, James Moore and Bruce Rivers.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And you can applaud now. And then we ask that you hold all applause until the very end of the forum. For the opening question, you will be given 2 minutes to respond. A league member will act as a timer and will show the time card at 15 seconds and stop. When you see the stop sign, you are allowed to quickly finish your sentence. Can the candidates see the timer signs?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. The opening question is, why are you running for judge and what are your qualifications? We will begin with...
I drew the first
You did.
card,
We will
yeah.
begin with Bruce Rivers, who drew the lot to speak first, and from there we will alternate. Go ahead.
All right, well, I'm Bruce Rivers, and I'm going to answer the question in the reverse. I'll tell you what my qualifications and then why I became a candidate for judge. I graduated from Augsburg College. I'm a lifelong resident of Minneapolis and Minnesota. I graduated from William Mitchell in 1998, and I opened my own law practice right out of the gate. I have since engaged my practice in primarily criminal defense, but I've done business litigation. I do also do business litigation and personal injury. That's kind of my practice background. But over the years, I've also become certified by the National Board of Trial Advocacy and by the Minnesota State Bar Association as a criminal law specialist. And what this means is that I've taken an exam. There's 4 lawyers, 4 judges, 4 prosecutors, and 4 defense lawyers that have all vouched for my experience, and I've tried a lot of cases over the years that give me that experience, and it's a designation that fewer than 2% of the lawyers in the state of Minnesota enjoy. It's a very tough thing to get, but it's based on experience, and you know that if you're certified that your experience is a cut above the rest. Why did I decide to run for judge? Well, I have seen the appointments that have come out of the governor's office, and I voted for the governor, and I am a supporter of his, but his appointments have concerned me because they all seem to come out of a prosecutor's office. You see, in the last race, Ms. Benson is a prosecutor. In the next race, Mr. Scoggins is a prosecutor. And I think there lacks a little balance, quite frankly. The U.S. Attorney is a fast track. So I've been able to marshal clients and really help people change their lives in my practice. And I want to implore that into the bench. And I think more of that needs to be on the bench.
Thank you. Now we'll have an opening statement from James Moore.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all, and thank you all for coming. I was appointed by the governor. I applied to be a judge and went through a judicial selection process, through a nonpartisan judicial selection process. I brought to the bench 27 years of public service. I worked both for the city of Bloomington, initially as a prosecutor and then as a civil litigator, and then for 23 years for the city of Minneapolis as a civil litigator, handling the most complex and diverse caseload that a lawyer could face. And I did that successfully for very many years. I developed a reputation among the legal community as somebody who was a good lawyer and a good person. In my nearly 2 years on the bench, I have continued my public service. I have continued public service as a judge, and I have continued to work with the community. I volunteer, as Ms. Benson talked about earlier, I am a volunteer in a reading program. I volunteer as a mock trial judge for high school and college. I have externs from the law schools in my chambers every semester. And I have in the past, before I took the bench, I was a community board member for the Minnesota Internship Center, which was a charter school that was designed to help at-risk kids, kids who had failed out of traditional high schools. And I volunteered initially through the Bar Association as a speaker for that organization, and ultimately became a board member because I think it's important that judges give back to their community. I'm a hard worker, I'm a good judge, and I'm asking for your vote on November 4th.
Thank you. We will begin now with our questions from the audience. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond unless I believe the question needs less time to respond. And we will begin with James Moore, and then we will alternate after that. There has been some talk about allowing judicial candidates to seek endorsement from a political party. What is your opinion of this option?
All right, the Hennepin County Bar Association actually sent a proposed affirmation to each of the candidates running for the contested seats this year. I signed that affirmation. That affirmation said that I would not declare a party affiliation, I would not characterize myself or my opponent by party affiliation, and I would not attend political organization events. I have firmly committed to a nonpartisan election for judges, despite the fact that candidates do have a constitutional right to declare a party affiliation. The U.S. Supreme Court has told us that. Whether that's a wise judgment of policy is not for me to gauge. What I can only tell you is that as a candidate and as a judge, I think it's incredibly important that judges and judicial candidates be nonpartisan, that they represent all constituencies fairly, that they remain open-minded, and I think that a party endorsement for any candidate is potentially problematic because when you're on the bench, you cannot be beholden to anyone. You need to be your own person. You need to be fair to whomever it is that appears in front of you on that, in the courtroom.
Thank you. Bruce Rivers, same question.
Well, I agree with Judge Moore about the endorsements, and I haven't raised a dollar. I haven't put up a single sign. I haven't accepted a single endorsement, and I've had plenty of people try to give me endorsements, including some political parties. I don't want to owe anybody anything. And if you go to his website, you see all these endorsements by individuals and people who say, I endorse you. Well, they come knocking on the door for favors, and, you know, I don't do that. And I specifically haven't been endorsed by anybody, and I didn't seek any endorsements. And I think as a judge, it's absolutely inappropriate to even publish who you're endorsed by. So I think, this is a great organization, and I think that, you can't be beholden, as the judge said, to anybody. And so I don't believe you should have any endorsements at all.
All right,
That's
thank
it.
you. Question number 2, we will begin with Bruce Rivers. Should a judge be held to a higher ethical standard than others in the judicial system? Why or why not?
Absolutely, without question. A judge is entrusted with a trust, a public trust. And a judge has a lot of power. There was a judge in Goodhue County who got caught trading favors and referrals to pay off his divorce bill. He was not taken off the bench, and I think he should have been. But there are rules, judicial canons that the judges must adhere to, and it's a code of conduct that I think, and it's a good code of conduct. But I think judges are in the public, and the public needs to have the trust. They have to have confidence in our judicial system that the guy that my case is being decided he's doing it fairly and he's beyond reproach. And, I just think it's absolutely imperative for a judge to follow the rules and not to be higher than mighty. And I think if they do fall off there's another judge in Anoka who was convicted of misdemeanor tax fraud. And if that's the case, he should be taken off the bench. You have a trust, and you need to instill confidence in the public. And if you don't, you shouldn't be on the bench, period.
Thank you. James Moore, same question.
The justice system only works if the community that it serves has faith in the system. And therefore, it is imperative that a judge be of the highest moral and ethical character. That's why, if I can talk about this just a little bit, I have so many people who have endorsed me because the lawyers who appear in front of me have stepped forward and endorsed my candidacy because they know that I am the kind of judge that you want on the bench, the person who will be fair and who brings the highest ethical standards to everything that I do and everything that I have done in my career. In a recent Hennepin County Bar Association poll, 85% of the lawyers who voted in this election voted for me because I have the reputation that's required for a judge to be effective and for justice to be served.
Thank you. The next question, it will be addressed to James Moore first. How would you prepare yourself to handle cases involving areas of the law with which you are unfamiliar?
Hard work. As I get those cases, I've been on the bench nearly 2 years now. And when you get a case that you don't know anything about, you have to dive in and figure it out. And you have to do that before the parties get to your courtroom. And so when I get a case in an area of the law that I'm unfamiliar with, I do my own research. As a starting point, I do have 2 law clerks who I've hired, who are lawyers just out of law school, and they help me with that initial research. There are a lot of resources available to judges. As new judges, newly appointed judges, you're sent to New Judge School, which is a week of training in a wide variety of areas. And when I was given a civil block of cases after about a year on the bench, I was sent to a meeting for new civil judges where you get training. We have bench retreats in which we learn about topics. But as I think Mr. Ritz said earlier to the same audience, nobody's going to know everything. The job of a judge is an incredibly diverse responsibility. And so you just have to be dedicated to the proposition that you're going to have to work hard to make sure that you do that job well. And again, I've demonstrated that.
Thank you. Bruce Rivers.
I never knew as much as I did when I was 19. When I was 19, I thought I knew everything. When I got to law school, I realized how much there was out there to know, and I figured, wow, if there's all this in law, what is there in medical? What is there in engineering? So the thing about getting a case that you don't know anything about, and it happens all the time, you have to be an adept swimmer. You have to know the knowledge of where to look for the information. And I've tried a number of cases in just about every area that the bench would cover: family, advanced civil work, criminal, and in every one of those areas, you come upon new things all the time. And just like the judge said, hard work. You have to become almost an expert in that particular field. When trying a complex homicide, you have a forensic issue that comes up that you've never had before because no two homicides are alike. Well, you have to become an expert in the absorption rate of methamphetamine in the system or whatever it happens to be, and so you can adeptly cross-examine the expert witness. You have to know just as much as the expert witness does. So when you have, as a judge, you've got parties with complicated ideas coming to you that you know nothing about. You dig in, you do the research, and you have law clerks that also help you out. And as a team, you get yourself up to speed, and you do the work. Simple as that.
All right, thank you. Next question to Bruce Rivers. Do you believe you would encounter any problems moving from your role as an advocate onto a new role as a judge?
Other than the pay cut, no. No, I don't. In fact, I think it would be a very natural transition because one of the things I've done in my practice is, like for criminal, for example, I have marshaled clients through change. Okay, you're charged with a very serious felony. There's no way we're going to win this case. The only way we get you to where we think we need to go is you need to change your life. So you get them into counseling, you get them into treatment, you do whatever you have to do to change their life, and sometimes they go kicking and screaming, but they do wind up changing. And it's because of that experience that I would have a better handle on where clients, what works and what doesn't. And so I think I would have a very natural transition, especially with the depth of my background. I didn't just come from a civil background. I didn't come from a civil servant background. I've got a wide variety of cases that I've handled over the 16 years, several thousands of cases. And I've tried a lot of cases. I know what works in the courtroom. I know the rules of evidence. And so, I've judged mock trials like everybody else, and I'm actually a volunteer down in Dakota County in their conciliation court, so I'm a judge there, and I'm a member of the Academy of Certified Trial Lawyers in Minnesota. So I think it would be a very natural transition, and I'd be happy to take that on.
All right, same question for James Moore from your perspective.
All right. Well, I've had almost 2 years of experience, but the transition for me was not a difficult one. I think I am dispositionally predisposed to the position. I have always been somebody who can see both sides of a question. Even as an advocate, I was always able to identify with the other side's position and understand it. I think that actually made me a good advocate because I could see both sides to a question. But that's how I've always addressed any issue in my life. And so moving from the role of advocate to the role of judge for me was a very comfortable one. I did have over 30 trials as a civil litigator and criminal prosecutor. I don't have any qualms about saying I was a government lawyer and a prosecutor. As a young lawyer, I was a prosecutor for 2.5 years, which got me in the courtroom every day. There is no better training ground than that. That experience gave me great experience, but it doesn't define who I am as a person or as a judge. Now, having had since that time 25 years of complex civil litigation, I'm able to see the issues in cases, cut to the chase, and I think I manage my courtroom quite well because I've been there a lot. I've seen a lot of good judges in my career. I've seen a few bad ones, and I've learned lessons over the course of the last 27 years that I bring to the bench every day.
Thank you. Next question will begin with James Moore. Is it appropriate to impose more restrictions on what cases go to trial? Is there a need for more mandatory mediation and settlement efforts? What would you propose?
If I can start with the second part of that question first, there is already existing in civil cases a requirement in each of my scheduling orders. I require parties to participate in alternative dispute resolution. And so the court system has gone that way years ago to try to keep the cases manageable for the judges. We have 62 judges in Hennepin County, but as you've heard, we have hundreds of thousands of cases. And so there is already a requirement for alternative dispute resolution. As a judge, I personally, on my civil cases, schedule a settlement conference. Not all judges do that. I'm not always successful in settling cases, but it at least gives me the opportunity to meet with the parties to understand the case, and that I know when they come back for trial, first of all, I'm going to be fully up to speed on the issues in their case. And at times, I'm able to settle cases. I don't think we can restrict a party's right to go to trial. People do have the right to go to trial, whether that's a criminal case or a civil case. And I don't think we want to impose more rules than we have. I think we want to be efficient in our use of time. And as a judge, I've dedicated the time to trying settling some of those civil cases. I also have, in the criminal cases that are also assigned to me, there's a settlement conference the week before trial on each of those cases. So you do try to winnow out the number of cases, and ultimately some cases settle on the courthouse steps. Sometimes that's what it takes to motivate the litigants to get to settlement. But I have to be prepared to try every case, and that's what I'm being paid to do, so that's what I'm doing.
Thank you. Bruce Rivers.
It's a very complex, it sounds like an easy question, but it's a very complex question. First of all, in criminal cases, a judge has a very limited role in trying to settle a criminal case. They really can't get in the middle, there's actually a case on it, they can't get in the middle of plea negotiations. But there's some things that you could do. You could have a date certain for trial. You could have judges assigned to cases and blocked to some, and they're doing a little bit of that now, but I think a judge could manage his calendar a little bit more if you could have dates certain on certain cases, you know, like I already elected her, sorry, Bev Benson had stated, you go to court, there's 18 people on the calendar, well, you know not 18 are gonna go, so why is everybody showing up? One person goes, get your date certain, but it's really difficult in Hennepin County because there are so many, there's just so many cases and so few judges. Even though there's over 60 judges, there's just, the workload is just tremendous. In civil cases, I'd like to see more head pounding, you know, like get in the room and, you know, settle your case. And you kind of know early on if a case is going to settle. And judges can do things with the parties like mediation, arbitration, and other alternative dispute resolution methods. I've mediated a lot of cases as a civil lawyer, and it works. And you know, if your client has an unrealistic expectation of settlement, or if it's a criminal case and they go to trial and lose, I don't think they should be penalized for that. A lot of judges will, you know, give them what they, sometimes in the defense bar, we call it a trial tax. You know, you have a defendant or a client who's kind of difficult to manage, and he wants to go to trial, he wants to stay in court, observe all my rights, and you do that, and then, you know, but the facts are still the same, and the offer was this. Why, you know, why would you get a stiffer penalty just because you went to trial?
Thank you. We'll begin with Bruce Rivers for the next question. If you observed a party in your courtroom being poorly represented by an unprepared, ineffective, or even unethical lawyer, how would you handle the situation? Do you believe judges should be required to report attorney misconduct?
Without question, absolutely. And I have seen it. There was a case in federal court where a judge, there was a guilty verdict, and the federal judge at the time, he reversed the conviction because of ineffective assistance of counsel. You know, the judge is kind of the gatekeeper of justice. And when you're sitting there watching a person who is represented by an unqualified person and they're going down the drain because of incompetence, the judge has the power to step in, and I would certainly do so. And there's things you can do with regard to that. And I just think it's the judge's duty to step in and to report misconduct and to ensure that that person isn't the victim of the lawyer.
Thank you. James Moore.
There's a whole range within that question. If you are seeing somebody be in your courtroom who is behaving unethically, you have an obligation under the rules to report that to the Board of Professional Responsibility. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But at the other end of the scale is the perhaps young, inexperienced lawyer who's appearing in your courtroom and is maybe a little bit in over their head. And it is possible to help without embarrassing. One of the things that I will occasionally do is call counsel into my chambers and just have a conversation with a lawyer saying, listen, you're missing elements of your claim here. You need to understand that if you're going to bring this motion, there are certain things that the statute requires you to do. And you can have that conversation in chambers. You can help young lawyers to develop professionalism without embarrassing them on the record in the courtroom. And so it's a balancing act, and it depends on the facts of the situation. If you've got an unethical lawyer, you're going to act immediately. You may remove them from representation if they are incompetent and appoint somebody else. And at the other end of the scale, we all make mistakes, and judges have to realize that sometimes people make mistakes and should give them a chance to make up for it.
All right, thank you. This will be the last question before closing statements, and we will begin with James Moore. You'll have 1 minute to answer the last question. What would be your greatest liability as a new judge?
One of my liabilities has always been my inability to delegate, which is evidenced to some extent by the blisters on my hand from putting up lawn signs for this current election. As a lawyer, I had trouble letting go of my cases and delegating. But what I learned as I came to the bench is that that was one of my areas of weakness, and I hired young lawyers who I trust and who are really good to take the reins on cases. And so I will tell them what I think the ruling should be, and they'll take that and they'll run with it and write an order for me. And I've learned that if I'm going to handle the 160 or 170 civil cases and the 160 criminal cases that are assigned to me, I do have to rely on those young lawyers. I've hired good people, and that's how you deal with it. They really have done an excellent job for me.
Thank you. Bruce Rivers.
Let's see, I think this is one of those questions where you give, well, we call them growth areas, not weaknesses, but this is one of those things where you say, I work too hard, and really that's, or, so it's kind of like a fake thing. I guess one of my weaknesses or growth areas, I believe people a little bit too readily. I'm very trusting, but if you burn me once, that's all you need to burn me, and see you later. So I guess that would be one of my growth areas, for lack of a better word. That, and sometimes I'm a little too jocular, as you could probably tell. I joke around a lot. In fact, one of the best times I had was during a murder one, but we were in chambers, and we were able to, the prosecutor and I and the judge, we got along famously. And we laughed in chambers, but when we got out in the courtroom, we did our job, and it was serious time. So those are my two. I gave you two growth areas.
Thank you. Now we will hear each candidate's 1 minute closing statement in the reverse order of the opening statements. So we will begin with James Moore.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank all of you for attending. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. It is difficult for the voters to know who a judge is, and I appreciate the opportunity to appear in front of you and to tell you how I behave within my courtroom. I will tell you that I treat every person who appears in front of me with respect. When I was sworn to the bench in my investiture ceremony, I said to the audience there, and I firmly believe and follow this every day, that justice happens one human interaction at a time. The district court level is about people, it's about human interaction. I'm asking for your vote on November 4th so that I can continue to serve the citizens of the County of Hennepin for the next 6 years. Thank you.
Thank you, and now we will hear from Bruce Rivers.
Well, to begin with, thank you very much for having me. This is a tremendously important organization, and I feel very privileged to be able to speak to you here tonight. And, you know, I'm the only candidate in this race that has actually represented a client, that has marshaled somebody through change and knows what works and what doesn't. And so, and that's why I just want to bring a little more balance to the bench, and that's why I'm running. I have had the absolute privilege of having just a lovely practice, and every time I try a case, I feel like I'm in the movie. I'm doing what I really, really want to do. And I've just seen a change in the bench over the years, and I would like to bring some more balance. And you can go to my website, www.riverslawyers.com, or Facebook, or just Google me. You can find out a little bit more about me. Thank you very much for the privilege of talking to you all.
Thank you, and now before we applaud the candidates, we will have a brief announcement from Gloria Erickson.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Golden Valley, I would like to thank our candidates for being here tonight. We hope this forum has helped the audience here and at home to make an informed decision. I would especially like to thank Laura Helmers for taking time from her very busy schedule to be our moderator. I would also like to thank Northwest Community Television for making it possible to view this event at home. The replay dates on Channel 12 are as follows: Saturday, October 25th at 1 p.m. and Sunday, October 26th at 5 p.m. and website 12.tv. If you're interested in learning more about League of Women Voters, there are brochures on the table. League members will be happy to discuss activities with you. We would love to have you join us. Before we have a warm round of applause for our candidates, please remember to vote November 4th.